Here is one reason why Adventists hold the view they do regarding the millennium. So if you see here the bottomless pit in the King James, let's look at that, what that word is here. Revelation 9 is one place. We have it in Revelation 20. Let's see. I think it's in Revelation 20. Yeah, right here, bottomless pit. Satan's bound for 1,000 years. Bound him 1,000 years. Holding him to the bottomless pit. What's this idea here? The 1,000 years he's in the pit. What is the pit here? What is this bottomless pit reference to? The saints are taken to heaven, remember? And we don't see them coming back until the 1,000 years are through. So all the saints of all history are taken to the marriage supper of the Lamb in heaven. And let's see, it's into the next chapter, I think. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. This is at the end of the 1,000 years, the new heavens and the new earth. Why is it adorned as a bride adorned for her husband? Because the saints are the bride, and they're in the city, because they went up to heaven at the beginning of the 1,000 years. Satan's bound for 1,000 years into the bottomless pit. What does that mean? Well, when Jesus returns, there's destruction and the death of the Antichrist and the lost when he sends his angels and they burn up. One's taken in judgment, one's left. The ones left are then raptured with the ones that are resurrected into heaven. You see them coming down like I just demonstrated. Now let's look at this bottomless pit that Satan's chained in for 1,000 years. Look, we'll go to the interlinear. Right here. This is the word, holding the key of the abyss and a chain great in his hand. That's the word they translate. Bottomless pit, very interesting translation. So you're sure on that, let me show you this. Let's go to Revelation 9. Key to the pit of the abyss. Same word, see? Let's look at it. Abusos. Bottomless. Busos. Boundless, bottom, the abyss, unfathomable depth, and especially Jewish conception, the home of the dead and of evil spirits. Okay, where is this word used? Romans 10. Who will descend into the abyss? The place of the dead, the chaotic place. Luke, Romans 10. This is where the demons were going to go be put away to. We have it in the Romans 9 we were just looking at in Revelation. And we have in Revelation 9:11, the angel of the abyss is Satan. It tells us that here in the definition of the word, literally, or if we go to that verse, the angel of the abyss is Abaddon, Apollyon in the Greek, which is Satan, the destroyer, the opposer, the accuser. Those in Revelation 17, they come up from out of the abyss. Revelation 20, verse 1, etc. 9 occurrences. Same verses, right? Now let's look at this word in, let's see. Then let's look at the LXX. Where is, oh, wow, what do we have here? The creation. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth, but the earth was unseen and unready. And darkness was upon the, darkness was upon the tohu vavohu. But then God starts creating. He creates it, and it's the abyss. It's unformed, unseen, and unready. So that word, abyss, bottomless pit, this chaotic form of the earth, this is a chaotic idea that we see in Jeremiah 4, where Jeremiah says, I saw, and the birds had fled, indicating that this is after the original creation. He's seeing the future time when the earth is desolate. And Jesus has destroyed all those that worship the beast with the beast and taken all his saints, resurrected them or transformed them and taken them to the marriage supper of the Lamb at the Father's house, like Jesus promised in John 14. So we have a condition of the earth because Christ sends forth his angels to gather everything that offends and practices lawlessness, and he destroys the Antichrist with the brightness of his coming and the death and the breath of his mouth. And we see the saints at that time when he descends from heaven They're gathered together with those who fell asleep on the day of the Lord. And then together, those who are resurrected first and those who are alive and remain are changed and gathered together to the Lord to meet him in the air. Then they shall be with the Lord. We don't see them coming back until the end of Revelation 20 and the new heavens and the new earth, and they descend from heaven. And that's when it says Satan's released from his prison. What's his prison? The abyss, the destroyed earth that was broken down at the coming of Jesus to stop the beast from killing the saints who are crying out. The ones who have died, their blood is crying out for vengeance under the altar, if you will. And Christ returns to avenge his people and to destroy the Antichrist. So what's left? A destroyed earth with no saints and dead enemies of God. And so Satan is held there in the abusos, the bottomless pit, which is the same condition of the earth we see in Genesis before God orders everything. And the reason he's let out of his pit at the end of the 1,000 years is because the saints in the holy city descend upon the earth. And all the lost who were already dead at Jesus coming at the beginning of the 1,000 years, they're just still dead. And then the angels kill all the other wicked people that worship the beast. Along with the beast, they're destroyed by Jesus and his angels. Now Satan's released because Christ returning to the earth with the saints in the holy city coming down out of heaven, the city adorned for the bridegroom. It comes down in Jerusalem, and Jesus resurrects all the lost people for the final judgment, which is the Gog and Magog war, where Satan gathers up from the four winds all the people outside the city that had died in history that weren't saved, or that died at the coming of Jesus for worshiping the beast. And fire comes down and devours them, where the beast and the false prophet were meaning on the surface of the earth, where they died at Jesus' original coming at the beginning of the 1,000 years, as he says in Matthew 13 and Matthew 25. This is just taking the text for what they say and necessarily interpreting them accordingly with the information given in Scripture only. And this backs it up because it's the same term used here in the Septuagint, describing the form of the earth before God ordered everything. And like it was at the beginning, so shall it be at the end. Jesus used this sort of narrative pattern when he said it'll be like the days of Noah, the final judgment. We have port ends. Let me show you one other thing for anybody who watches this. So I noticed, wow, the pinnacle of history is the very middle of the 7,000 years of history, the 1,000-year period at the end. In the middle of that picture, Jesus comes, dies on the cross, right in the center. Time, times, and half a time. Mirrored image, chiastic. Other people have pointed this out. There's Eden on both ends with the cross at the pinnacle, the focus, what we're told to focus on. The sacrifice of Jesus, which is a display of God's mercy and justice and care to save sinners. And then so it's a reversal back to Eden on the ends with the cross on the focal point. We have a flood judgment on each end, and then Jesus uses that analogy at the end. It'll be like the days of Noah. We have a without form and void abyss right before God creates. Why does he put that in there in Genesis? Why does he say that? Why does it add that? He created it and it was without form and void, and then he orders everything, as John Walton points out. That pattern is used when it's talking about Revelation in the condition of the earth, which, by the way, hasn't received a Sabbath by the people of God because they deny it. And the earth will rest, just like the land rested in Israel, or was supposed to, right? And when they didn't do it, what was it? For every day of their apostasy, it was for a year. A day for a year. Represented a year. And the earth will get her Sabbath rest, and it will be during the 1,000 years. And it will be a fallow earth, if you will, an abyss. And Satan will be stuck here, chained to that, with no one to mess with until Christ comes back with the saints. And then Satan's able to gather for one last attack on God, with all the lost people being raised, and God raises them because only God has the power to raise the dead. And Satan's able to grab them because they're rebellion against God, and they encompass the holy city. This is in the Old Testament and the New. This is the Gog and Magog situation. And that is the lake of fire judgment when Christ touches down on the earth and fire destroys them. That's the lake of fire. That's why the lost array is at the end of the 1,000 years. It's a very tidy pattern, which knits the Bible together in a consistent pattern on many levels of the narrative. Within single verses, we see these sorts of patterns. It's a teaching mechanism. It's a literary pattern. But the whole Bible uses that pattern. The whole plan of salvation from Genesis to Revelation. We have a chiastic structure with the cross focus. What more could you ask for? Understanding the cross is the way of salvation for humans, being the focus of that pattern. Let's see, what was it going to go to now? Oh yeah. So okay. I know this doesn't prove anything, but I thought it was interesting. So I thought, wow, there's this chiastic pattern to the whole Bible. So I was like, let's go to Genesis. This doesn't prove anything, by the way. And I know that the chapter and verses were not originally in the text, but just notice this, it's interesting. We go to Genesis 5. We have the 10 the 10 patriarchs. The 7th one is Enoch, and he's taken to heaven, right? Enoch lived 365 years and begat Methuselah, and Enoch walked with God, and he was taken, right? And then Jude talks about this, the 7th from Adam, the 7 out of the 10, the 7th out of the 10. So there's something significant about the number 7. Enoch is the 7th patriarch, and he's translated to heaven without seeing death. And that's even mentioned, I think, in Jude in the New Testament. But so chapter 5 is literally just the 10 patriarchs' genealogies, with Enoch being a particularly special one in that list of 10. So he's the 7th out of the 10, and that's what Genesis 5 is. Just the genealogies, how old they were when they had their first son, and how old they were when they died. Now, that's the 5th chapter into the Bible, Genesis 5. So it's like, well, let's just see what happens if I go to Revelation, if this chiastic pattern. So it was like a test I was doing. So I said, let's go to Revelation. There's 22 chapters. See, let's go 5 back to chapter 17. See if there's anything we can see that's almost like that same sort of chiastic pattern. If you don't know what a chiasm is, I have videos on it. You can look it up, but it's a mirrored image with the center of it being the focal point. So my claim is the cross is the center of history and the narrative of the plan of salvation and humanity in the Bible, with Eden, a restored Eden at the beginning, and it restored at the end, the cross in the center. So I wanted to see if I could see a pattern. So I'll go 5 chapters in, we have 7, the 7th from out of the 10. So I went, what's 5 chapters from the back? And it talks about, of course, this see, where is it? Yeah, right here, 7 heads and 10 horns. The kings of the earth committed fornication with this prostitute, woman on the beast. The woman sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. 7 heads and 10 horns. Genesis 5 has the 10 patriarchs, with the 7th being Enoch, translated to heaven. And this chapter also talks about the victory of the Lamb, so it's kind of encompassing, right? The 10 horns thou saw were upon the beast. It's in Daniel too, I guess, right? He plucks up 3 of the 10 or whatever, and there's 7 left. Anyways, just thought that was interesting. I put it to the test, and there was a pattern there, whatever that's worth.